So a real warm welcome to the session of Pushkina on the evolution of the startups in India. Uh, it's an uh, it's really amazing because I had no clue that she's been doing this. She's been building a brand which is called the Tech Outspoke, and coincidentally, and all be very happy that yesterday it was incorporated. So big congratulations to Pushkina, and it's called the Tech Outspoke Labs Private Limited. So that's amazing, you know. But before, and you know, this what her company is, she's basically working with very tech-focused startups to bridge the divide between their products and the market using very smart communication design tools. But before I ask her to come in, I really want to take you through another journey of uh, what is Pushkina for us. So please I'm going to share this with you. So I'm just going to share the screen. The host has to let me come in, please, to share the screen. After all, the first time we met on 16th of April for the event team, and the idea was this little lady who, not little lady, she was very sure of an idea, and she said, I'm going to captain it. And from day one, you know, she got her own team and she did the mock, she tried, and that was it. And you know how the pub crawl was, which, you know, was an icebreaker for people for annual dinner. So this was the only side and part I knew. I had no idea about this lady working and, you know, building a brand. And a big hug to you, Pushkina. It has just been amazing because you are so sure about what you can deliver and, you know, what you can't. And I just love that firmness. So here it is. Share with us how you are going ahead with your startup and the evolution of startups in India. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Neil. You put in so much effort into the video thing. Thank you. So it's kind of amazing how I could totally relate to Yumna when she was saying last time that the session that she did was about Google Docs. I did one on Zumba, and though I thoroughly enjoyed it, but this topic is something which is really close to my heart. Been almost 10 years now. And it's pretty iconic that I'm doing this on ELSAConnect and no other platform because of how the seeds were sown in LSR. I remember in my entire 3 years when I was in LSR, every summer vacation I would intern with a startup, and no break, nothing. It was just very clear to me that I wanted to understand what are the building blocks to building an organization. And I could intuitively understand the power of an organization, the power of collective. It's just that I did not know what distinguishes a good one from a bad one, what makes something last long, and what makes them just crumble, fall apart. So I understood it intuitively. I was a political science student, so I understood the power of movements, power of people coming together and coming for a common cause. But I just did not know what it takes to sustain something like that. And so, just in my pursuit, I ended up interning with startups every every summer vacation. And when the time came to graduate, there were two clear options. One was to either take up a job. I had a job offer, or I take up higher studies, and I decided to do neither of those. And I ended up getting together with two people and starting a social impact focused incubator. And the whole idea was that can young entrepreneurs like me, or people who have the desire to do something meaningful, can we pursue profit with a sense of purpose? And that was the underlying vision, value. And the overall vision that we wanted to create was to create a think tank, if you can call it, that could work with governments, nonprofits, businesses, leaders, and create a kind of like a blueprint of sustainable development. And we ended up doing many firsts. We launched India's first online digital magazine purely focused on social development goals. Um, we were also one of the first few agencies in India, fairly young agency, like 20, 21 years old, of, you know, 3 people running an agency, one of the first few agencies dedicated to cause marketing in India. So there were many firsts that I ended up doing in those 4 years. Subsequently, you always reach that point where you are like, is this what my worldview is? I have taken on so much, but do I really know that this is the path that I want to walk on? Is it, do I have the correct instruments to make judgments, to make decisions? And with that thought, I realized I needed to kind of expand my worldview and work with teams which, you know, there's a saying that you are in that pond, you're the frog in that pond, and that's your kingdom, that's it. So I did not want to be a frog in that small pond. I wanted to expand my worldview and really understand what are others doing. And it was around the same time when VC funding was also coming in India, and startups were growing like at a very rapid pace. So here I was bootstrapping something, and I wasn't sure if that was the only path to delivering on what I wanted to do. Moved to Bangalore, 2015. For 4 years, I worked with startups very closely with the founders in VC funded startups. Understood what growth is, how do you scale, what is the difference between, you know, between building a small team and, you know, leading teams which are like hundreds, 200,000 workforce. And so for me, the question, even then when I was working as an employee or as a member of external teams, the question was never about why should I start up? The question was always about when. And in 2019, towards the end, I knew this is the time when I need to quit and do something of my own again. So that was my whole journey, so to say. So I'm going to now talk about the evolution of startups in India specifically. And this takes me to the whole pre-independence and post-independence era, right? And I really want to highlight something through this. So I've prepared a small presentation and I'm going to share that with you. So yeah, so this is, I'm showing you a perspective of time, right? And I'm going to ask you a question, like, this is, you know, these are some of the most, these are the companies who we today recognize as powerhouses, like the face of corporate India. And I've kind of mapped them out on a timeline, but can you guess, like, from like Aditya Birla Group to, you know, today 2020, like what kind of timestamp are we talking about? How many years back do you think this whole timeline looks like, from, let's say, the day when Tata Group was institutionalized to today, let's say? So what kind of timeline do you think this is?
1840s.
Yeah, so around 150 years, is that your guess?
Tata's is 1900. It started in 1900.
Okay.
And Aditya Birla Group was actually GD Birla first. Aditya Birla was like actually third in succession, frankly. Of course, he took over after GD Birla, but he's third in succession on the Birla Group. So his grandfather's one who set up the Birla Group, actually.
Godrej would be second.
Okay.
Then of course, if you're talking about Aditya Birla Group as a Birla Group, then maybe third. Infosys would be fourth.
Okay. So let me show you the timeline then.
I
It's
think
still
Tata
with
first
this.
for sure. 162 years.
So Aditya Birla Group was in 1857, Tata Group 1868, Godrej, which was even shocking to me, was 1897. Mahindra and Wipro was shocking to me because this is pre-independence, and the others are pretty much like I knew it, but somehow in my mind, Reliance, HCL, Infosys, they were kind of in the same. Even Mahindra, for that matter, I thought would be in the same bandwidth. So this timeline kind of gives you perspective of life cycle of a business. Just like humans have a life, like we have our whole life expectancy, you can have similar life expectancy for businesses, and this goes to show that they like we today recognize these as powerhouses, which maybe when they started off, they were just started off as another business, right? And what we end up missing is this is a sample of survivorship bias, which basically means the companies who have survived and grown and thrived. But you don't know the many others who, died in the process or were shut down in the process. And what we today see is a handful chosen of them who like kind of survived. And this kind of wanted to bring that perspective into the conversation, where I touch upon at least the life expectancy of a business, and it's one of the most elusive concepts ever. But the point being that not everyone survives. Business environments change. Your ability to adapt determines a lot of things. Leadership determines a lot of things, and things like that, right? But the modern startup or the modern entrepreneur, the face of entrepreneurship, honestly, to me started somewhere in 90s when India opened, because of globalization and liberalization. Like India suddenly opened its market to not just foreign investment, but the markets were open in terms of exposure, opportunities, and that kind of led to this segment of people, the middle class that we call the upper middle class values, the middle class values, that had a cascading effect on their opportunities. And risk appetite, no doubt, was extremely low that time, because let's face it, we were still growing as an economy. Even today we are growing, but we were far less in terms of volume, in terms of purchasing power. We were far less than what we are today. And VC funding was almost non-existent. And India as an economy, what was driving it was not just agriculture, but service sector. So you had Mindtree, you had all of these other TCS, you had Wipro, all of these service-centric companies that came in there, and that was what was primarily fueling the working segment of India, who we call the white professionals, right? And what happened towards the late mid 90s was the developed countries who had come into the dot-com era. The web was active, the web had come into play, and people were creating products. So although the advances were still, the Western countries were still advanced in their whole dot-com boom, but India still had not seen that kind of dot-com era. We had some trickling effect coming in. There were few lead players like Naukri.com and Rediff and a couple of others who joined into that dot-com boom. And one of the companies that today now is like a household name is Book My Show, which that time I've read stories about how Book My Show, for example, they had online transactions were non-existent that time, so they used to heavily rely on cash on delivery. So you would book your tickets online and you would expect people to kind of come and deliver the tickets to your home and take the money. And they've been now their founders often mention these stories as the highlight, because they were like notorious customers who would, shoo away the delivery boys and say like, give us the tickets, we're not paying the money, and they had to like bring in people to get their money out of those customers. So that era in itself is really shows how what a long way we've come. But around 2006 to 2014 is when the adoption started increasing in terms of your entire internet browsing capabilities, right? The digital consumption was increasing in tier 1, tier 2 cities. So the penetration of web application, what we access on our mobile, these are mobile apps, but this was yet to come. It was primarily through browsers we were booking everything. And VCs began setting shop in India. They realized that they obviously have to diversify their portfolio and enter new markets, and India was cropping up in their names everywhere. So and surprisingly, even educational institutions were jumping into this bandwagon. So you had tons of entrepreneurship cells in IITs and IIMs. There were B-plan competitions encouraging students to kind of join this whole entrepreneurship boom that was happening, and networking events were beginning to crop up. And slowly you can see now India turning from like a service centric to a product heavy or a product focused entrepreneurship. So you had companies like Zomato that were formed there, you had companies like Paytm, you had companies like Flipkart. I remember when I had just started up in 2011, Flipkart was still selling books online, and Paytm was that online, you just put money in your phone. So that just shows the kind of transition we have witnessed. And it was only towards 2015 that mobile became people started developing products using mobile as the first interface. And that owes its entire people owe this to a mobile data getting cheaper and cheaper, and smartphone getting cheaper and cheaper. And suddenly you have the whole everyone beginning to own smartphones and mobile data, either for entertainment or to access these services. And today, from 2015 onwards, I can seriously say that a lot of people are not just mainstream entrepreneurs. You have micro entrepreneurs, you have people running small kirana stores using WhatsApp as a device to reach their customers. There are companies who have built entire Dunzo, for example, started off being just a WhatsApp group. So you have seen this whole transition of companies where they had to have so much of heavy footwork involved in their business to suddenly transitioning into just one software, one program. And India is poised in a different way because of the complex market that we have, the diversity that we have. And people call India as the young population. By 2020, by 2029 or 2025, I'm not sure, India is going to have the maximum part of the segment of the population is going to be youth. And that suddenly puts the country at a very interesting juncture for people to kind of look at the market in an interesting way and look at how we can tap into creating products that are solving these problems for the segment. In 2019, India had like 31 unicorns. I think now it's probably 33, 34 if I'm not wrong. And India's digital adoption is here to stay. People have adapted themselves and they have learned how to access things using mobile. So this this habit is here to stay. And how do we tap into people using the power of mobile phone, power of data, creating services, solutions around this? And they were innovation happening in sectors, but now it's instead of sectors, it's about how deep can you go within a sector. So healthcare, for that matter, is now people are coming up with very interesting innovations within healthcare, and they're going deeper and deeper. So for example, there is a friend of mine, he's invented a device which you put under your bed, and it measures your heartbeat and the regularity of your sleep, and their prediction of a heart attack has an accuracy of 98 point something. And these guys have predicted onset of a heart failure like 15-20 minutes before it actually sets. And their devices are being used across hospitals. So we are seeing innovation, not just invention of new sectors, but within sectors, innovation is coming into play. And there's a reason for why that this is happening. We have youth, we have whole lot of talent which is available. The market is suddenly very receptive, and capital is available. The biggest challenge used to be that capital was when people wanted to do something, capital was not easily available. But that's not the case anymore. In India, surprisingly, getting a seed fund, getting funding up till Series A, Series B is relatively easy, and Series D onwards, the big leagues. But in between is where the gap is, and that is probably because the market has matured. So let me show you, for example, the graph of how your how the funding has progressed in India. Yes. So if you look at this, it will show you how 2008 was more like a nascent phase for VC funding, because the number of choices were less, the number of people working on products was less, and obviously it was a new market. Investors take time in understanding that market. And then 2013 was primarily the scaling up phase. And 2000, you also have to keep in mind the various events that happened around 2013 2014 is when the recession happened. So that took a toll on the entire fundraising process in India. But very soon it picked up, and 2018 is where in fact 2017-18 was the time when maximum number of unicorns were declared in India, and the maturity phase of startups started to show. And this is what is kind of going to tell you the progression of the investments that have happened in India over the years. And this is kind of a snapshot of what kind of brands that have come out of this whole process, right? The list is not extensive, and there are so many more that are there which have not been like mentioned here. The whole part of how these brands have come into play, and now people recognize them as the poster boys, or whether it's the Bansals or anyone for that matter, the kind of work that they have done. I think that has also got to do a lot with why it's a serious career choice for people now, because you suddenly have inspiring stories, not just like a handful, but so many of them. And that kind of shows that if they can do it, so can you. And I think there's a reason why today, if I look at my friend circle, a lot of them are today, know that at some point they have to kind of start up. And I want to leave with the thought that just like Tata, just like Reliance or any of these big brands, maybe 20-30 years down the line, you will find the crop that we call powerhouses coming from so many years back, we'll find a lot of them today transitioning into the brands that we trust, that we've seen our parents trust over the years. And one big wish list that I have is to kind of push entrepreneurship for women specifically, and that's why it kind of made sense to talk about this here on this platform, because it, you know, it's so heartening. It's so nice to see women coming at the forefront, because I feel that the most enterprising lot and the most passionate people I've seen are like within you know, the women that I talk to. And it's I think it's a serious leveling field for them to play today. And no matter how many biases that might exist in the market for like female gender in general, I feel there's a lot of glass ceiling that is waiting to be broken. And I hope that ELSAs are at the forefront of it. So yeah, that's it.
Any questions we would like? That was extremely informative and very creative, Pushkina, to know how you've moved in this journey. But very open to questions.
Pushkina, what were your biggest challenges? Sorry, Usha, go ahead.
No, okay, just a quick question on Pushkina. You moved to Bangalore in 2015 and you worked till 2019, is it?
Yes.
What did you do? You said something about VC funded startups.
Yeah. So I was, so one of the spaces that I was working was in the space of mobility. We launched India's first AC shuttle service by the brand called Zipco. And we were competing with Ola Shuttle directly. And there I realized there were a couple of things that I realized. That one is that regulatory bodies are a whole different game to kind of fight. And we were constantly in talks with the union transportation department and the state transportation department, because, you know, the thing is, here there are a bunch of people who really want to transform everything, and the governments who have to figure out the policies and laws in place, right? So and they can never go hand in hand together unless they are really at, you know, at the forefront. The governments are working at the forefront, but surprisingly it's now starting to happen. And I saw this firsthand in fintech, for example. RBI has been working really closely with private players, be it banks and BFCs, be it with these new private limited companies, in figuring out how do we make, you know, access to credit a safe process, so that nobody is kind of victimized, nobody is kind of you know, taken advantage of because of the system. So like every year it's like changing, the landscape is changing so fast, and your regulatory bodies, your government bodies, they're really trying to figure out how to work with this. Because when you are talking to an entrepreneur, they are always thinking of how fast can I do this, or I have the solution, I want to implement this as fast as possible. And then there'll be a body telling you, no, you can't do this, this is not, we haven't thought of this, there's no law in place for this. So you know, seeing this firsthand in two highly regulated spaces kind of made me realize the importance of, you know, timing. Zipco unfortunately we created a lot of impact at the ground level for users, for consumers, but that's the thing. Half of the times our energies were drained in, you know, trying to save the shuttle service you know, providers, and trying to lobby between the government and the private players. And they would always sometimes take the buses and, you know, keep them in their stations and things like that. So yeah, that is VC
Great.
funding primarily because in the last stint that I had, I was involved in the fundraising process. So so that's how I was exposed to how does it work and things like that.
Great.
Monica,
Thank
you had
you.
a question.
Yeah, so I was saying, it's very interesting to hear the professional backdrop and all that. But I was just wondering what were your personal sort of challenges or decision points which were difficult to make.
I think team building, like, I think when I started up in 4 years, my team broke 3 times. And that is the challenge you face when you are young and unsure.
This was when?
This was in 2011, yes. The burden of a founder or the burden of an entrepreneur is always about not only doing your work, but also ensuring that everyone else around you is motivated enough to do that work. And, we tend to have a very optimistic view of life, of things like, hey, I'm charged up, why isn't this person charged up? And and that's how I realized that everyone's different and everyone's priorities are going to be different, everyone's motivation is going to be different. So how do you make sure that you're able to bring it together? And it's like a great symphony with different notes. How do you pull it all together and make it sound beautiful? But for that, you need to respect every person within that whole symphony, in so to say. And so for me, the biggest challenge was people. And you talk to any founder, I think everyone will tell you, because everyone knows they are the most critical element, but very few know how to manage or how to keep them motivated and keep them stitched together. So yeah, so for me it's always been people, and that's why I'm very, very certain about how I want to build this. And over the last few years, I've been just observing founders and what they do, how teams break, how do you can build an awesome team, but it will, to keep them together, to keep them lasting, and to have them walk with you in the journey is probably the most difficult task. And I feel I have some understanding of it, but it's like you learn with it. And yeah, a lot of my time is spent reading up about it. But yeah, team.
Yeah, thanks. I think Vanita wants to come in. Sorry,
currently I said, what does your team look like, Pushkina?
So I have 2 people working with me, but that's purely on contractual basis. I will be now. I was actually waiting for the legal entity to come into place so that I can start the hiring process or whatever people that have to get on board. So now that this is done, I can now start looking at hiring. Because my current business model is in the services domain, I don't have to ramp it up immediately. It's all about the kind of projects I'm getting and executing it well and getting the right talent for that. Once I go into the product side of things, that's when this point of scale comes in, and that's when you need those many people to kind of scale that product. So I'm not worried about it. I am deliberately taking it slow, although there's a lot of temptation to move fast. I'm taking all the time in the world to build this the right way, and to build it slow, gradual and slow. That's it.
Yeah, Pushkina, before Vanita comes in, Anjana says completely agree with you regarding the challenges of team building. And Shafiqe says, beautiful metaphor, that's a story by itself. So Vanita, for you, the question, she's been wanting to ask a question.
Yeah, Pushkina, one of the biggest problems with this new age finance like VC, etc., and I'm saying this from having to encourage young people to be entrepreneurs. This is my work. And one of the things that has struck me, and I've asked a lot of young people the same question, and they're all kind of flummoxed, is the fact that, the entire architecture of the VC system is that you'll keep on selling. You'll never build. Okay, and you keep exiting and, keep, transferring your whatever it is to somebody else. Yeah. Who is going to build the Tatas and the Birlas of this country if this is the architecture?
Right. I agree with you. And that is why if you see the life cycle of companies has shortened so much. One day you will be called hailing it as the next most defining industry or a business, and 2 3 Oyo, WeWork,
Yeah.
these are all examples of how the it's like they've you put on steroids, and you are constantly like growing, but at some point the limitation, because the foundation was weak, it never ended up growing to as big as it should have. And building is something which cannot be put on on a treadmill, and you just speed it up and that's it. So I agree with you. I've had many debates about this, that who is going to be the next Tata and Birla. But the good thing, Vanita, here is that there are people who are realizing this, and you will be happy to know that there are a bunch of people who are thinking about this, young people who are not easily lured with the okay, hey, we're going to put in this much money, you now need to make it 10x by expanding it like crazy, and that's it. So there are people who are thinking about, like, one of the clients that I work with has it took them 7 8 years to get to where they are today, but they did it by making sure their unit economics are right, their business model is sound and tested and it's valued, and they are okay to make it to build it slow. And they have turned down investment opportunities. They just don't want to do it because they understand the value of building something. And I think it stems from the desire, the inherent desire. So the founders, all of them want to build something that lasts. They don't want it to crumble. And I think uh, that is necessary for you to even realize and understand, what if, are you here to just make a quick buck and exit, or are you here to build something which can be of immense value, just like the Tatas and Birlas, right? There are people who are thinking like this, and I am happy to be surrounded by both sides, where I have a perspective of both things. I know I don't last. I don't think I can be the ones who's constantly on a crazy breakneck speed. It was something that I thought I can, but inherently, I think my values don't align with that. So that's why I want to take it easy. I want to make sure my unit economics are in place, and that's what. Yeah, exactly. What Shafige is saying, that build something which lasts but not necessarily is huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Shafige, anything else you'd like to add in and come and ask a question, clarify? Shafige. Anyone else? Yeah.
Can I join Nilu?
Yeah, please,
Kaveri here.
Kaveri. Please, hi.
Yeah. Hey, Pushkina. Hi, Nilu. Pushkina, it was lovely to hear from, seriously, as people say, that you're the bacha of the group, and it was great to hear all of this from you. Such an analysis. I'm happy that you say, that you can just let it keep going at a smaller pace, not at a very fast pace. And a similar experience I have to share. I mean, I started off in 2003 on similar lines. Services was the sector. We could not sustain beyond 2007, but two of us, talking of the women power, I have a partner who is from Kathmandu, and we prioritized things, and we have stuck on since then, not as big, but sailing through. So that is something about women power. We understood each other's issues. We had to say goodbye to some of the contractual partners, had to say goodbye to the commission-based partners also, but managed to sustain. And we plan to refloat our services again this December on a larger scale. But yes, it was women power which actually helped me sail through. Else, I would have been sitting now at home. Yeah.
nice.
Lovely. Can I ask another question, Pushkina?
Yeah.
Okay, because you said pushing entrepreneurship for women is one of your big priorities. So from the last 2 points about what Kaveri said and what you said about the pace of growth and the scale of growth, is that a woman entrepreneur kind of problem? that we don't scale, we don't think very big, but we would like to grow slowly. There is a positive side to it, which we discussed about sustainability, but also there is
Usha,
again,
sorry, I think I lost you for a bit. My connection is slightly unstable, so could you repeat that?
yeah, that scaling
Mm-hmm.
could also be a sustainability challenge, especially for women entrepreneurs. Just as much as having a strong foundation, like
Right.
all those lovely points you made about unit economics and business models and all of that. But scaling is also a sustainability challenge, and
Right.
I think especially for women entrepreneurs. And since you said you're interested in women
Right.
entrepreneurship, your
Right.
point of view on that.
Right. So scaling, so I think scaling is a function of two, three aspects. One is that what kind of an ecosystem are you talking about? Uh, and I think this is where, you know, uh, non-profits, your research bodies, and plenty of other, the whole partnership network can really have a cascading effect. I think people don't understand that. So what happens in like there was another a friend of mine who has started a financial well-being platform for women, but she's facing problems in scaling it. Now, one thing she did not realize is that she can tap into all the nonprofits who are working with women, be it with migrant working women, migrant workers, be it with domestic help. There's so many women segments and interest groups that she can collaborate with just using the nexus of nonprofits. But it never struck her because somewhere down the line we are not able to see beyond our scope of area. And I think scaling is a huge function of, are you able to bring those partners on board who can help you transition, be it geographically, be it segment wise, or things like that. So women find it hard because I feel that limit somehow that ecosystem either has not nurtured it, or they haven't really pursued that line of thought. And one of the ways which I think women will benefit is if everyone kind of, there's a body that brings all of these people together, and works across spectrums. I think that should definitely help. But obviously, it's a long battle. It's not just, it can't be done overnight.
Beautiful.
Tanya, would you like to ask your question, or you want me to read it? Would you like to come in, Tanya? After that, Vandana, we can conclude after that. Tanya, would you like to come in? Yeah.
Hi. I was just asking Pushkina, you said 2013 saw a slump. After 2013, there was a slump in all these startups. So do you think the present situation will also cause that kind of an effect on the startups?
It is. There are, it's expected that around 40 to 45% of the startups will shut down because they don't have any cash reserve left. And the layoffs that are happening, it's a function of that, because here you had anticipated this much growth, so you created that capacity, and now that growth is completely sucked away, and now you have this whole people sitting waiting to be mobilized, your workforce or your expenses that you had incurred, and you don't have business coming in to support that, kind of to justify having so many people. Obviously, people are right now, the entire focus of startups especially is just to how do they increase their runway, how can we, instead of surviving for a month, how can we ensure that we can survive for 3 months, 4 months. But even in that, there are still going to be huge, like there's going to be a massive shutdown from not just startups, even your SMEs, your small and medium enterprises. So there's going to be a massive, I would say, massacre of like organizations, and that is the nature of and I did this very like I had hosted a webinar series, and I had called a founder who believes in building organization for the long term, right? And he said that it's not the first time this has happened. The nature is different, but in 2013 we saw a recession, and before that they were always, in every 10 to 12 years there's always been a major global level event that happens and businesses get impacted. Now think with that perspective, that are you prepared, are you preparing your organization, are you building your organization to sustain an event like this? uh, this is new. COVID, the pandemic triggered because of COVID-19 is new because it has transitioned not just geographically, it has impacted all sectors. Uh, it has impacted all communities. So it is new because nobody is immune from it. Whereas global recession had a major impact on the financial, on finance and financial companies majorly, and couple of others who were funded by VC and private equity. But this has impacted everyone, even the ones who were doing well. And so one should go with that mindset that something like this can happen 5 years, 10 years. And so how am I building my organization? And people are predicting that the companies that will come out of this scenario, they will be the ones, but I mean, it's like survival of the fittest. They would have learned something, and with those learnings, they'll come back even stronger. It's no surprise that almost every other company is now selling grocery.
Yeah.
Just to survive. Like,
Yeah.
Make My Trip is now going to deliver food. Like, there are things like that that's happening which nobody had predicted, but that's the nature. You have to adapt, you have to learn, and that's how you grow.
Thanks, Pushkina. Vandana, you want to come in, and then we can the last question or the last comment, and then we'll move on to.
I think amazing, Pushkina, and I think you summed it very beautifully when you said the nature of being able to adapt, to grow. I think it's, the startup trend, if I may call it trend, has been so high in this last, within this last decade. Also, what I'm observing is that with people who set up the startups, and if they are, not like a Magnum, like a very large space where you're not going for VC and things like that.
Yeah.
They're very attached because it's a passion. It's a passion that you're seeing through in a startup. What happens there with a team? Because there's that one person whose vision it is, right? How easy is it to let go and embrace more people in the team? Because when you spoke about, the team and the challenges, how easy is it to share your vision and engage people in the same platform as the person who starts up the startup?
Okay, so I have a very I have this realization that not everyone will be equally passionate about what you're doing. Some might come because they find the space. So everyone will have different motivations of coming and working with you. One could be just that they want to, they're happy making a living and they want to go back home to their families and have a good day, and they don't want to necessarily put in that much effort. And so one is that
my question, sorry to interrupt, Pushkina. My question is more towards the person who sets it up. How difficult is it, or how, is it easy for them to let go of that and enable others to sort of take over, not take over literally, but take over and be engaged in the kind of way that others may want to be engaged in the startup?
So I am a believer of intrinsic motivation, and there is always something for someone in the particular work, job, task, company. And it is about you finding that one is obviously the certain level of awareness that the employee must have, or the person you're working with must have. And one is also a driving factor for you as a founder or somebody who started up and you are passionate about. Now, how do you find that alignment? I might be somebody who loves, for example, designing, but and I may not be interested in that particular domain, but for me, design, like for example, I work with a designer who enjoys the whole process, but not necessarily understands the whole business aspect. Now, it's a combination of me trying to show the larger picture of how that adds value to his work. So like I had to spend some time in making him understand that his designs are essentially meant to speak and communicate, for example. How why doesn't he look at this whole process as a way to and business is primarily you striking a chord with someone and understanding and making sure that there's value in what I'm doing and you see that value. So why doesn't he use those same principles of design and try to transition that to business? So I think it's there's a beautiful book which I recently read called Drive by Daniel Pink, and he has amazingly spelled out how in a world where people are primarily hooked with just rewards as a way of engagement, there is another scientific a science-backed approach which entails connecting people to the things that they find meaningful and making that reflect in the work that they're doing in the organization that you're building. And I think that's important, you recognizing that everyone, it starts with you recognizing that everyone is different and understanding what is that driving force and creating a mirror for them within that organization so that they feel connected to that, okay, I'm here for a reason. Everyone wants to feel valued, everyone wants to feel that their contribution matters. So can you bring that out in the little things that you're doing? And I think it's a journey, it's a relationship that has to be built. Unfortunately, in a world where everything revolves around tasks, sometimes you tend to miss it. But that's where that will distinguish somebody who's just started up and somebody who's kind of like not just a good leader, but somebody who is able to understand people and who's able to nurture that, and that's what's primarily creates beautiful organizations.
So we have
Thank you.
Pushkina, we have a similar question from Sanjari. I think the last one we can take. Sanjari and Anjana are wondering that with the Pol Science, is it experience after that, or did you follow up with more academic pursuit? They want to just know a little bit more. So if you can share a bit of.
Okay, so I'll tell you what.
Pushkina, Sanjari here, just a minute, because while I was listening to you, I felt that you are influenced to do a lot of reading, that's why I asked you the question, because with the Pol Science background and the way I heard the depth, you have studied so deeply the industry, you see. So I found that, it's like a lot of people say, nothing like hands-on experience, books don't teach you what experience can teach you. So I'm very intrigued that did you ever think of an MBA to look in, because I feel you're stressing on teamwork, which is HR. You're a combination of everything. And what I felt throughout that you're reading a lot of books, and you're learning from them. So I was just curious that how come with a Pol Science background, you never wanted to pursue any streamlined course or something which would give you all the knowledge instead of getting it hands-on? I mean, I could be wrong.
You should talk to my dad. The amount of arguments I've had with him about MBA, holy, okay, so in 2011, there was a major time when I was preparing for MBA. The next juncture, 2015, then the next time, so I have literally signed up for GMAT maybe 3 or 4 times, and I've cancelled giving the exams maybe 5 days or 2 days. Once I did it even 2 days before the exam. And that comes from the fact that it's just not coming from inside. I feel like I am chasing a degree which will give me a validation, which will give me a thappa, and for that people will be like, okay, we want to work with Pushkina because she's done an MBA from this place, or because, and I don't want to be that person. I want to work with me for me.
Thumbs up.
Yeah.
Spoken like
So
an
I think,
entrepreneur.
Yes, like a
Sorry?
true entrepreneur, the makings of a fantastic entrepreneur, no doubt
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
I think, Pushkina, you want to finish what you were saying?
yeah. So it's pure and simple that I want people to work with me, for me. Books have helped because these are not theories, but they are theories in some ways, but books give you the insight into, like, I have very typical view of reading books. Like, either I have to read something which is about human behavior, which can help me understand human nature, behavior better, or something about organization, which can help me build a better organization, or very random concepts like about neurology and things like that. So I have like a very diverse taste, but political science helped me in one thing, which was uh, as simple as that, bringing people together. And all my professional life, I've done marketing and communications. Like, that was the area that I was in. And the seed, I see that it was sown during my political science classes, because we were studying Western ideologies, we were studying Eastern ideologies, what Socrates thought, what Aristotle thought, what Gandhi stood for, and there were so many, like, areas of like, thoughts, ideologies, and each one of them has a beautiful learning, or some kind of a value which is reflecting in society today. We've all evolved from that. Democracy came into existence because of that, and things like that. Free thinkers and liberal thinkers and all of that. Now, organization is nothing but people together and what kind of culture they've built. And for me, it became a very natural, area to start off with. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. There's a lot more for her. I think I stopped my slideshow with being getting nervous, but she's now exploring and has an interesting instrument to play with. I cannot pronounce it. I'm so sorry. I've learned the spelling called ukulele,
Ukulele.
Ukulele. Yeah. And so I forgot to stop my slideshow. And the most interesting thing is, before I conclude and ask Pragya, I want Pragya has an announcement to make. But before I come to that, I must share with you. So one fine day, we were all in a very intense meeting, and she says, and my husband, none of us knew she was married. It was such a lovely surprise. Where is her husband come from suddenly? So it was, every time you meet her, there'll be some intriguing kind of a thing. So thank you very much, Pushkina. It was extremely, it was a lot of learning for me, and the kind of analysis and which is speaking from your heart, which is beautiful. So thanks, and I'm going to ask Pragya to just give an announcement, and we can carry on after that if you like.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Please do join us on Thursday. I'll be interviewing Prema Iyer. She's taking over as president of the Inner Wheel Club of Bangalore next month. So we'll be asking her about it. And I'm joining her EC as editor. So it will be my privilege to interview her, and we'll love to share more about Inner Wheel with all of you. So please join us on Thursday.
Thank you, Pragya, because she's one of the persons who came forward, and we said we want to, please come in, many of you, all of you, with all your suggestions, Kaveri, with your team. Please, it's your show, the connect is yours.
Thank you.
So you have
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Neelu, Vandana, Yumna. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It would be really nice.
And congratulations. I think we all can congratulate her, because her company just got formed yesterday, incorporated, registered. So Pushkina, it's amazing. It's just timeliness of...
Congratulations. Yes, I remember when she said, this is my husband, and my eyes came out.
Yeah, somebody had called her my daughter, so I have a Jamai also, you see.
Yeah. I remember Shanali telling me that you're such a baby, you're married. I'm like...
And actually, she's not a baby, I think. Yumna corrected me and she said, just stop it. She's 30, okay? And she's an ELSA. So I said, yes, I will remember that. So I love these two women have put me on the right track, so thank you so much. It's so wonderful having her. I think Prema was with us, and I think she must have left. So we do meet you all on Thursday. Yeah,
Yes,
lovely.
that would be
Yeah.
looking
Please
forward.
come in.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Pushkina.
Thank you,
Thank
Pushkina.
you.
Thank
Thank you.
Pushkina. I
All
was
the
just
best,
trying
Pushkina. I mean, there's so much to learn from you. You know,
Yeah,
it's like just leave ourselves open to learning with all you young ones. I think it's fantastic. It's a great learning curve. So thank you.
You know, I'm desperately trying to get this thing to, like, I'm trying to get like a payment portal done on my thing for my poetry festival. And I've been going crazy because, you know, we're a trust, so you need like the bank to give you two things. So the madness, like Razor Pay and Insta. मुझे कुछ नहीं काम कर रहा. Last year, when we did the festival art craft design at the ITC, I went through Events High. Pushkina, I must tell you this because I was just right now, you know, I said, fish it all. Like, I'll go through Events High. And I went to Events High and I'm like, why can't I create an event? And then there's a big thing saying we've shut down our business because we can't cope with COVID. So everything is suspended and your last day is 18th of April. And just as I was saying that, you know, just when I saw that, because I was multitasking, I heard you saying, you know, but you need to be prepared, and COVID is something nobody could be prepared for. And I'm like, Events High is down.
Yeah, and they were desperately promoting themselves at the last minute. I downloaded the app and now they don't exist.
I know.
Let's
But
hope.
that's
Let's
how
hope
it is.
it's temporary and they get back once events start.
But I think a lot more startups will also come forward now because of the way the situation is.
Absolutely.
You know, with jobs going away. What do you feel about that? I know we are pretty much done with the session, but what do you feel about that, Pushkina? Do you think there's a lot of opportunity out there for new opportunities coming up?
So one is that you are doing things just to survive, which a lot of companies are doing right now, because, like, for example, I just told you, like, a lot of people are getting into grocery delivery, alcohol delivery, things like that. But there is also a segment of people who are trying to figure out what and everyone's so with business, hindsight is always like, you always, you know, retrospect and you figure out, oh, now that makes sense, you kind of justify. So, like, there is a huge saying that, you know, during 2008 recession that happened, Airbnb came into existence, Dropbox came into existence, and all of these big tech companies came into existence just because the recession taught them that you have to be self-reliant, Atmanirbhar, so to say. So people are also saying that this is going to have that same impact on companies, and people are starting to explore healthcare as a potential area to look at, because now suddenly it's even more justified. There are companies who are one of the clients that I work with, they are looking at digital onboarding entire experience, like how do you have people join something remotely, how do you onboard employees remotely. So there is a whole suite of services that have come out in that. Cybersecurity is being looked at in a big way because people are understanding that now everyone's going to work remotely. Your company's tech infrastructure needs to be very safe. So there are a lot of categories of industries which are coming into play, and people are understanding that now they need to, you know, keep that mindset. The opportunities are endless. Now it's just a matter of how do you use your understanding of that segment and the current capabilities that you have, and we'll get to know what comes out of this only maybe two years later.
In fact,
there's something called virtual parties that has come now. They'll supply the food to your guests and you can have a party on Zoom. So they're virtual parties. Yeah, there's a company. Recently, I saw the
thought that.
Great thought, but I was just going to say that, Pushkina, you know, this is such a great lead-in actually to what Rekha is talking about. So Rekha on Saturday is talking about, you know, what opportunities does. So one, how does COVID impact businesses? So how do we change the way we do business? But secondly, what are the opportunities that are arising out of this changed environment? Like, I have not seen Vineet like at all. Like, we have been working across from each other. Like, literally, like if I look, Samne is like the bedroom out of which he's working, and I haven't seen him. Like, I see him like, you know, at night. And you know why? The Supreme Court said just before lockdown started that banks can do video KYCs.
and his second company does basically, KYCs. So like he's had 4 banks go live in this interim period, and I don't see him. I have not. I'm like, we're working in the same house. We have never spent so much. We started dating each other in my second year of LSR, right? That's like 20 something years ago, and I have not seen him this much ever, because he's always been like such a workaholic. He's a workaholic across the room from me, and I don't see him. It's just madness.
Yeah, like coming to again back to the animals, you can't imagine how it's opened up avenues for people who are shelters, rescue, unbelievable people who are leaving their jobs, and the kind of people we are meeting, and they are finding, actually they're doing a lot of introspection, and they're finding their passion, because yes, money is there and you need to run things out, but even sorting their own values while they're interacting with animals. So, there's a lot of interesting things which I've been going through. And I have these 2-3 people because of the 2,000 flats which we have in my complex. So we do have Zoom sessions quite often, but 2-3 of them, the faces were swollen. And as like Yumna said, and I said, what's wrong with you? He says, 16 hours, he's with Deloitte. One of them is with Arthur Anderson. But what I'm saying is they're not getting a break, and they're just dying with a lot of work. There's no end to it. 16 hours. I mean, I said, why can't you all just work it out, morning, evening? But they don't. They lose their job. So what I'm sharing is that people are not startups, but joining up with people which are already there.
Pushkina, what you didn't talk about is what it means to be an entrepreneur. The fact that, like I tell Vineet, like that your company like runs like 120 people or whatever it is now. Like you're a board member. Why are you killing yourself? But the point is the buck stops with you, right? Like, even as a board member, like you're just like taking calls in the middle of the, I'm like, but
I've seen it firsthand. Like entrepreneurship is a very, very lonely journey. Like you have a lot of people there for you, but the thing is the accountability and the burden of decision is so much that nobody can relate to it, honestly, unless you're talking to your fellow entrepreneurs. But at the end of the day, it's your organization, it's what you built, you put your heart and soul to it. But you go back home and you go to bed with all of those thoughts. So it's a very lonely journey for sure, not for the weak-hearted.
But remember, we are there with you. So remember that always.
Yes.
No, it is a lonely journey, because we, that's why this concept of a forum, I don't know whether they've heard of it in, Harvard started, because all these CEOs used to get together and meet, and, it's a very lonely journey up this, right? But there is a concept of this started because they had a nice, lovely evening together, all 8, 6, 7 of them. And the next morning, this guy had hung himself. So nobody knew what was his. So coming back to the point that, you are very lonely is a very real thing,
Dangerous subjects today. Dangerous subject. Let's stop at this.
So thank you so much, Pushkina. And I think
I loved it.